Today is communicating and connecting with children. And I did call it a happy hour talk, and we do have wine. And Prisoner is a wine I really like, but I also kind of chose it because sometimes, I know in my experience with parents and sometimes with teachers, it does feel like, you're a prisoner. And I mean, obviously we've all, either if you're a parent, you chose to be a parent, if you're a teacher, you chose it, but sometimes it can feel like you're a prisoner, and I'm doing some of this so that we can get less of that. So you don't have as much feeling like anxiety or like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do, and so forth. So that's one of the purposes of holding this event. So today's format's pretty simple. I'm gonna go through 3 principled practices. Observe, am I needed here? Offer freedom within clear limits, and then acknowledge strong emotions. So there's all sorts of other stuff that's gonna go into good relationships with children, of course, but these 3 I'm gonna focus on. So we'll hop into the first one. Observe, am I needed here? Ruby reaches for a toy. This is a 6-month-old girl reaching for a toy. So just check it out and we'll talk about it afterward. Okay, so she got it. Now, how many of you wanted to help her get the toy? Right, so again, I've seen this probably 50 to 100 times, and there's still an urge in me to push the toy. But so a few questions. Did she ever look up to ask for help? No. Did she, now it seems like the sadistic camera person's like, I'm gonna, but she never looked at the camera person for help. So, but we all felt, or most of us felt, that we wanted to help, but there's not really a need. So this observe, am I needed here? So most parents, most teachers, if they didn't have certain knowledge or skills, they would probably help out because they think it's right. But what are we doing when we help out is the question, when it's not needed. So first, if you notice here, so I have here, after she's concentrated, she is focused. After that, she's content. So if you've seen children really working hard at things on their own, when they succeed, they have this sense of contentment. And when you have contentment as a child, for us, as parents or educators, then you have better connection with a child. So for those of you with parents or have been educators, if you do hop in at any time, you've probably experienced that maddening scream or something like that, and you're not connecting with your child. In fact, you're halting him from succeeding. So we really want to step back and observe, in any situation, am I needed? So here's another example. So infants or toddlers playing with some purposeful toys. This is actually a child and a family member here, but this is Zane playing with a toy. Okay, so one thing I'm going to hit on throughout this is that if you see that he gets it on there and he's excited. He's so happy for himself. If mom or dad comes by and puts it on there for him, is he going to have that same smile? No, because he's interested in the process of getting it on there, not mommy or daddy or my teacher getting it on there for me. So oftentimes we want to get to the end where children are interested in the process. They're developing themselves, and that excitement comes through. This is another example. On one of the flyers for this, I talked about food. And there's always some kind of battles at night. Your child won't eat this. This is one part of the way to include children in prepping food. And I found this example and I thought this was interesting. So it's a preschooler. I think she's about 3 years old, but she's whisking some.
To go in the pan now?
Can you do it a little more? Whisk it a little more?
And when you cook it, it will be yummy.
Yes.
Okay, so the mom's including her in preparing food, which is an important thing. But if you notice, the child, at one point, she asked for help. Right? Is it ready to go in now? And then the mom offer the help. And then what I find is interesting, did you hear what she said at the end? Did you hear her comment? Said, and when you cook it, it will be yummy. So it seems kind of minor, but how many of you work with children? I don't want that, that's gross. I don't want that one. She's involved in the process. When that food comes out, I've seen kids, even if I know it, they don't even like this type of thing. This is delicious. Because they've been involved in the process. Now, we'll talk about some limits of that, because let's say you're making some extreme dinner and your child wants to help in that, and that's not the time to be helping. So there's going to be some limits to it, but as much as you can involve your child in the process of the food, you're going to have a lot fewer issues with food later on. Not the total solution, but it's a part of it. So, and this next thing. So I'm going to give an adult example. It's kind of an analogy for children, but it's similar for us. So this is an example of a guy, so that's Mount Everest. And this guy had wanted to climb Mount Everest for years. Now, I don't know much about climbing, but I know a lot goes into it, and Everest is a serious, serious climb. So this guy prepared like crazy for a few years to make this trip. So you're talking about backpacking, getting ready, climbing smaller mountains, and he's like, I'm going to do this. So he's got all of his gear. And you know, this is a risky adventure, but he's prepared himself, so he's ready. He's going up, and he gets about a fourth of the way up Everest. And all of a sudden, he looks up in the sky, and Superman comes wisping over, takes him, and lifts him to the summit. Because Superman thinks, I'm helping him. I'm bringing him to the top, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to get to the top. So my question is this guy going to be happy with Superman? No, he's going to be angry with Superman. But what is Superman going to think? Why are you angry at me? I just helped you. So can you guys see a conflict here that's very similar with parent and child or teacher and child? Child, you're helping them, you're doing everything for him, and he's shouting at you and hitting you possibly? I mean, it's a really bad relationship because you're not understanding one another. Child's, it's going to take a lot of time and years for him to understand you, but at least we can understand the child. So observe, am I needed here? In this case, Superman could have clearly seen this guy wasn't yelling, I need your help. He was just climbing. So just observe, am I needed here? Again, back to that look for process, not necessarily outcome. So a lot of times with children, we're looking at outcome. Maria Montessori has this great line about, she saw a child that's working with a pail, and he was filling it with some sand. And his mom's looking over, oh, he's having trouble, he's struggling with it. So she goes over and puts all the sand in the pail for him. Look at, yeah. And he just flips out. But she was thinking of the end. He wants a filled pail. She wasn't thinking of that natural urge for a child to go through that experience, the process. So just keep that in mind, process over end. Interesting. Have anybody in here, so say elementary age children, teenagers, or between us as adults, experienced somebody trying to give you help when you don't really need it? Any examples? Yeah?
Not personally, but
okay.
my wife, who's, as you know, she's about 5'3",
okay.
and she flew up to San Francisco recently, and even though she's perfectly capable of putting her thing in the overhead bin,
yeah.
someone came in and he said, oh, here, let me help you with that. And went ahead and did it for her, and it was like, okay, you don't need to touch my stuff. And I'm also capable of doing it myself.
Yeah.
And who are you? And I mean, it was this guy who thought he was, you know, oh, here's this petite woman who needs help putting her thing in the overhead bin.
Yeah.
But really, she was fine. And she was actually upset. She was texting me. She's like, you wouldn't believe this.
Yeah, so she's angry. So, I mean, now, I'm going to put forward that I think a lot of our issues as adults stem from our issues as children, and this is one of them. She clearly thinks this is wrong. That guy is probably sitting texting his wife, can you believe this girl tried to help her and look at what you did? So we're having conflicts here. So in this case, helping somebody who doesn't need help, are they showing signs of help? If she's struggling with the luggage, it's falling on her head, then maybe a kind individual comes over and aids. So it's the same with us as adults. So there's something similar going on here. And then Maria Montessori, who I admire greatly, she says every useless aid arrests development. So with us as adults, you know, she can say, oh man, this guy was trying to help me out. As a child, what happens when somebody grabs that luggage from him and does it for him? What happens when you put the sand in the pail? What happens when you don't let the child struggle with the toy? They don't develop. They don't develop as complete as they could. And today, if you think about, there's a big thing with business and people saying, you got to fail first. You got to be comfortable with failure. And they're nailing it over your head as adults. But if you never got comfortable with failing, then succeed as a child, it's very, very hard to be comfortable with failure as an adult. So if you think back to Ruby with that toy, she's reaching, she's failing, but she stays at it. And then she finally succeeds. You have all those experiences as a child and you grow up and it's like, yeah, I'm going to fail, but I'm going to succeed at the end. So it's hugely important to let children struggle unless they're asking for your help, where you can see clearly that they're asking for your help. So it's that observe, am I needed here? So that's the first main point. Any questions on observe, am I needed here? No? Okay. Yeah, go for it.
So at what point, I mean, if the child doesn't ask for help, or someone doesn't ask for help, do we just never give it?
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, even if we can see that maybe we could intervene with a better strategy or a better way after they failed a few times, I mean, what do you, at what point do you jump in, or do you just?
That's a great question. And what's interesting is I've found on what a lot of parents want is a little tidbit that will say, here's the answer. Right? That's the kind of Facebook, Pinterest, here's a picture, we'll solve everything. But there's no way to do that. So I use this observe, am I needed here? You're going to have to think, am I needed here by this unique child? That man on the plane, am I needed here? You really have to use your judgment. So you will make mistakes. Now I would say if anything in terms of danger, oh, the child, he seems like he's having fun crossing the street. no, he's not. I'm going to go grab him. And guess what? He might cry. I wanted to do it. That's okay. And we'll get to dealing with strong emotions. Okay? So yeah, you're going to have to use some judgment as you go along. And I actually thought about this. Old ladies crossing the street, grandmas. Should you help them cross the street? So I think there's some areas that are really difficult to decide, because me emotionally, I see an older woman walking, I want to kind of like help her across. But is she asking for my help? And how much do we actually hold back even elderly people because we're helping them too much? When what a lot of elderly people need is more time to actually continue to move and get around. So I don't think it's an easy black or white, but this observe, am I needed here, is important. So if you think about it, you need to make a unique judgment. There is no book on this that says, when the child blinks his eyes twice, aid. You know, there's nothing like that. So, yeah.
You know, there's another side of that, which is the false request for help, right? And I don't know if you're going to address that later, but that's, I guess my question is, how do you, when you know you're not necessarily needed and they're maybe looking for something else that they're trying to solve, but they're asking?
Another great question. I'd say what's interesting, what I found with parents and teachers, that you'll have the child that's like constantly wants to do it on its own. And you have another child, completely different personality, that's like, I want you to do everything for me. So a lot of times that I want you to do everything for me is developed by parents and teachers, but sometimes it's a personality thing. So I think that's another judgment issue, where you stay back. He wants to help, and he might be saying, you can try. You can try on your own. And you just have to be able to not be rude, or and I'll get to this too, but not, you're a big boy and big boys can do that. None of this judgment, just, oh, you can try. And oftentimes what's helpful is not if you go and help him do it, but say, let me show you how to do it. You show him, and then separate it, and then back away. So there's all sorts of different techniques you can use, but yeah, you're going to have to use your judgment on that. Does he really need my help when he's asking for it as well? So, all right, the next one is the observing before reacting. This is actually an example of yours. Oh, sorry, Darsh.
I realized with Arjun at least,
Yeah.
till he thinks it's a challenge, it's a struggle, that he's learning something.
Yeah.
He wants to do it on his own. But let's say garlic, pressing a garlic, he's learning, he wants to do it, and he wants no help. But the moment he knows, oh, I'm confident I know how to do it, then it's, Mama, help me, I don't know how to do it.
Oh, interesting.
Because now that's not...
The motivation is gone. Yeah, so what I think, you know, you hit on something that actually happens in classrooms with teachers is you have to use your judgment of when the child is done with it, done with something. Yeah, and I think you can get, I mean, just like us, if we were in a job that we're bored with, can you come do this for me? You know, I don't want to do it anymore.
And then what I've used is I trust and I know that you can do it. So how about you show me one and the rest I'll take care of, because I know that. So if it's like 5 cloves of garlic, he does one and then I do the 4 because I know he's just bored doing that. Yeah,
so I think there's all sorts of tactics. The one thing I would say is if a child really is done with it, let him be done with it. He doesn't want to chop the garlic. I mean, if you've gotten to an age where there's, you know, we have responsibilities in the house and you guys have agreed to certain responsibilities, that's a whole different story. But this age group, I don't think you're there yet, so it's not. That's the next concern, is when the child, you guys have agreed on chores, and the child's like, I don't want to take that trash out. That's not a challenge, you know, I don't want to do that. So that's a whole different ball of wax. Yeah. So observing before reacting, this is a positive example of a mother, somebody here, who observed before she reacted. Right? So she posted on Facebook this sweet, I call it the sweet little helper, but Facebook post she has 2 children. Oh, let me go back. So let me read it to you. So she posted this. Sometimes I just need to remember to observe. My almost 3-year-old has been independent in putting herself to bed for over a year. We read 2 books, sing a goodnight song, then she can do whatever she wants in her room until she falls asleep. Tonight, I was feeling rather stressed, and I went into the room after 45 minutes and told her to turn off the light. When I walked in, I found every shirt that both she and her 4-month-old sister Elon owns spread out on the floor. So they share a room. Instead of flying off the handle, because A, that's what I really wanted to do, and B, I had just folded every shirt and put away laundry that morning, I silently observed. Then I calmly asked her what she was doing. I imagine like the strength to be calm in this question. But I calmly asked her what she was doing. I'm showing Elon all of her new shirts so she can pick out her clothes tomorrow. I had just changed out all the 3-month-old clothes for 6-month-old clothes. She then went to the clothes bar and said, I even hung these up on the hangers, Mommy. She was so proud of herself. She was being thoughtful, was trying to help, and was showing me what she thought was important. I've since turned off the light, but I can still hear her opening and closing the dresser and picking out clothes for herself and for her sister. Okay, so I know there's 100 other stories that aren't so positive, but we focus on the positive one here. It's very difficult to silently observe or patiently observe when you're frustrated. So it's one thing when you're calm, it's already difficult. But if you are frustrated, it's very hard. But if you can get that patience, you never know what you'll find, as opposed to flipping out, saying, what are you doing? That type of thing. So this clearly builds relationship with your child. So if mom had jumped in immediately, what might have happened in that moment? And you guys might have some experiences of what would happen in that moment when you jump in. Can anybody imagine? What might happen?
The mom would probably cry, and then she'd probably think what she did was wrong.
Yeah, cry. You know, and I did something wrong, maybe? And if you think about it, in the child's mind, if none of this was here, because she would have never said it, do you think the child is even going to say it? She might hold back what she was actually doing. So she thought she's doing something great, which it was in her context, and she would get punished for it. So imagine that over time, issue after issue after issue. When that young girl is 15, is she going to be sharing things with mom? Not if mom jumped in and yelled at her. So these things have repercussions as you go along. So it's important to try, observe, am I needed here? Even when you're frustrated, and it can be difficult. Right? You mess up a few times, a few hundred times, child's going to not be a mess when she's older. But the point is, we want to work towards getting better and better at these things. Not that we're going to get it right every time. Okay, so now this is the case when, okay, we have all this freedom. My child can throw her clothes all over the floor, and you know, she can whisk eggs and so forth. But when there's a limit, when I need to get out of the house and my child wants to help me do something where there's no time. So we have to have there's a certain amount of freedom, but then there's limits. So the example I'm going to use here is chocolate ice cream covered face. So let me just go through this really briefly. So a mom is driving with, let's say, a 3-year-old, Aiden, and they're going to get ice cream. They both want some ice cream, so they're driving out to get some ice cream, and mom's got Aiden in the back seat, and Aiden is close up to the seat, and she's kicking the seat. Children like to kick things. So she's kicking the seat. What's a natural response from a normal parent? A normal parent. I'm not saying Miss Perfect parent. A normal parent.
Please stop kicking my seat, or we're going to turn this car around, and you're not getting ice cream.
That's exactly right.
I have some in the freezer, you can.
So stop kicking the chair, please. And it might even be nice. In the beginning, it might be nice. The first one might be nice. Please stop kicking my chair. Okay, so Aiden says, okay, well, mom doesn't want me kicking my chair, so her chair, so she stops. A minute later, what does Aiden do? She kicks the chair. Now, mom, in her head, I said nicely. I said nicely, I need you to stop kicking that chair right now. Aiden's like, ooh, we go through the kid's mind. Ooh, there's some high volume here. This is getting a little bit more serious. I'm going to cool down for a little bit. Minute and a half later, kicking the seat. Mom says, that's it, we're turning this thing around one more time, and you're not getting any ice cream, young man. Okay, whoa, ice cream is serious, the kids thought. I can't mess around. But the last few, she said things and she wasn't really serious. Now, of course, the kid's not this, sensible in his head, but these are the kind of inner thoughts that would be going on. 2 minutes later, kicks the seat, okay? Now, I'm not going to tell you what the mom says at 2 minutes, but 15 minutes later, this is Aiden. Okay, so he's got his ice cream. So it's very difficult for parents to set limits and to be consistent with them. So, but what we need to do is offer these freedom within limits with clear limits. So if we think about this situation, what might mom done? What would a clear limit have looked like in this situation? Let's go to the first kick. First kick. What do you think? And when I say clear, I mean the parent, like I'll put the two up here actually, knows what the limit is, and he knows that you follow it. So you want to set a real limit, and you want to be clear that you're going to follow it. So what can mom say the first time? Freedom within limits. Child kicks the seat. What do you say?
Take my chair down and turn around.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to go further, and I'll give a little bit more of the words for it. But in essence, it is, if you kick this seat again, we're going to have to go home. But I want to give you, here's some clarity around it. Now, this is extensive, but, I felt that you kicked my seat. Seats are for sitting. When we're in a car, we don't kick the seats. We sit on them. In order to go places we want, like the ice cream shop, we have to go in the car. If you continue to kick the seats in our car, we will have to go home. So here, if we just say, you kick my seat one more time, we're going to turn around. It feels like it's connected with the parent. I'm giving you an order, and it's me. If we can connect it to, hey, what do you do on seats? I mean, I don't see you guys kicking the seat in front of you. We sit on seats. So if you can give the child a sense that this is what we do with these items, right? We don't kick chairs, we sit in them. So of course, Aiden is just going to be magical, right? Aiden's going to be like, wow, Mom, that is so clarifying. And you said if we're going to have to go home, so I'm just going to sit here and sit in the seat, because that's what we do in seats. Is that what Aiden's going to do? No. Aiden's going to kick the seat. And then what are you going to do as a parent?
Go home.
You're going to go home. There's no second. It's the first one. You go home. Now, this is difficult at times because often it's not just Aiden that wants ice cream. It might be Mom that wants ice cream, so it's super difficult. But here it's minorly difficult. What if you're going to Disneyland and you had planned the whole day? Yeah, you go home. Now, well, but we planned the whole day, we have tickets, it's Disneyland. It's one day. We're talking a long experience with your child, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of hellish stuff if you are not consistent. So you have to have the clear limits, and enforce them, go through with them. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm curious, the way that you phrased this one, I was thinking as you were reading that, I was thinking, and maybe 3-year-old is not going to be as right, but I work with older children. Maybe saying to the parent saying, when you kick my seat, I am distracted and it makes it harder for me to drive. Like connecting to the actual logical, because right now, I mean, it's fine. I think like the child understands this is the purpose of this object, and this is what you're doing, and it's not the purpose. Yep. And when that happens, but it's still kind of disconnected from. Yeah, but I mean, we use things for different purposes all the time, Mom. Like,
why not kick seats?
Sometimes I do this. But if you say, oh, traffic is dangerous, and I need to have my attention on this, and when you kick my seat, I can't have my attention on this. So if you do it again, I mean, maybe I'll pull over and I'll wait till you stop kicking it, and then that's when we'll go home or whatever it is. But like,
I think you can add that.
What age do you think that those kinds of?
I think you could do that day one, because the idea is not, your child is clearly at a year. If he's kicking, he's not gonna know what you're talking about. But the idea is you're talking to him as if he can understand. So I actually think that's great. So you could add your own. This is not the written thing. I have some parents write this down. I'm gonna put this on Facebook, and they're just say the exact same thing to their child. But yeah, I think you can add something in like that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I think
Is there a less drastic limitation so that if you are doing something like going to Disneyland, you're not, something that's still making the point. Maybe pull over and we're going to stop. I don't know.
I think you can be creative with that, but I think let me put it like this. This lesson should have already been learned by the time you go to Disneyland. So if you decided, you're going to Disneyland and it's the first time he's ever been in a car and you say, if you kick my chair, no. So I think you can be creative and stagger this. So by the time you get to Disneyland, there shouldn't be any kicking going on. So, yeah.
So I remember when I first started teaching, one of the most common mistakes I would make is, you're trying to set clear limits with a kid. So I'd set one and be, super clear, like, I nailed this one. And then they would do something, and okay, I'm gonna go for something. It was totally unrealistic. So, maybe it's the case where it's like Disneyland.
Yeah.
And, I've got, there's kids in the car, and maybe some more even like your kids or something.
Yeah.
And you realize in that situation, I set this really clear limit with this kid, and I actually can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that kind of case, what do you think the way out of that is?
So I think this comes up a lot, and I think as a parent, what's going to happen is you're going to have to experiment.
You gotta bluff your way out. Get off the freeway, you let that temper tantrum happen, pull over, you
Yeah.
about what's going on.
Yeah. I think this is one of the things with, you have to look at it as it's not you as the boss just setting limits. It's what do we use things for? So you really have to put some thought into this. If a normal kind of like authority, like I'm the parent, comes to a talk and says, now I'm going to go home and I'm going to set my limits, it's going to be a failure. So I think you have to use your own judgment. And I should say, I'm going through 3 unique things. Each one of these takes a lot of work and a lot of practice. We have an hour here. I'm going to give you guys some indication of each of them, but each one of these would take another sit down talk. So I don't want to pretend that I've got all the answers in this one talk. You go home and you put these into practice. These are principled practices, but they really take a lot of work. So I taught for years and the same thing happened to me. Most of the time what I realized was so much of the limits I was putting on is because I wanted to ensure that everything was in control. And then that's the sure way to lose control. Our goal is not to show the child that we're in control, and if he kicks that thing, the goal is to find out what are the real limits of this world so we can help him to know limits. Because as adults, there are limits. If I was like, oh, I want to get a drink, I'm just going to run across the street and a car hits me, I'm dead. There are limits. So we want to scaffold those limits up. So, but it does take a lot of work and a lot of thought. Okay. So some other examples. One example that happens a lot with parents and teachers is at this age is throwing blocks or throwing something. How many of you have kids that throw things when you don't want them to throw things? Yeah, so this just happens all the time. So if we take what we talked about, child knows what the limit is and that you follow it, and I want to add something in here, always remember that you can offer some choices. If your child, like as the example, your child's kicking the chair, maybe he likes kicking things. When they get out of the car, let's go over and like kick something that he can kick. So with the block example, does anyone want to take a stab at, child is taking blocks, he's building for a while, and then just like chucking them around the house. What do you do? Yeah, go for it.
We generally tell him we throw outside the house and we have balls outside in the patio. And so we offer him the choice that if you feel like throwing, that's okay, but you need to go out. And we all can go out if you want, and we'll play together, but we cannot throw things inside the house.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. If you want to throw something, because oftentimes we don't throw these things, and you don't give them an option, child wants to throw something.
Yeah. And we always have a basket outside ready, so.
And it's prepared ahead of time.
And he can go on by himself into it if he chooses
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and I think, and you said, if you want to stay inside and play with the blocks, that's fine, but blocks are not for throwing. Balls are for throwing outside.
I think that's kind of how we handle, we just basically, it looks like you're not using this in the appropriate manner. Are you tired of working on this activity?
Yeah.
Or should we put it away and find something else?
Yeah, and I think you can attempt to trying to see what's going on. I try my hardest to stick to, this is what we use these items for. So if you'd like to throw something, you can throw the balls, as opposed to trying to read what's going on in their heads. But sometimes if you guys as parents can know what's going on, you can say, oh, it seems like you're a little bit tired, that's fine, or whatever, So yeah, totally fine. Yeah.
So the observe and then react?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I think of myself as a child. Probably was throwing blocks, not because, blocks aren't for throwing, but what happens when you throw a block? Like, are blocks different from balls? Do they bounce in the same way? The kinds of things that children explore?
Yep.
And that, I can't even imagine the patience to try to observe and try to read. Is it just the frustration or the tiredness, or is it something where the child is actually, consistently throwing it in the same place to see if something different happens? How do blocks respond when you do that?
So this, again, it goes back to you have to observe your individual child. So if you see that it's not something that's like, I'm just flailing, but he really is curious. Like say somebody wants to see the difference between a ball and a block. Then you could say, you know what, I've seen that it looks like you might be curious about this. You know, tomorrow I'm gonna get a few blocks and balls and have you can throw them. But you still want to ensure that if it's building time and you're in the house, you do not let him throw, even if he's experimenting. He can experiment and break one of your glasses. So, but I think that's a good point that you want to see, you want to be looking. Is he doing something that's actually productive, but it's inappropriate in this environment? Yeah. So, and then on choices, just if you can give children a choice, it's always helpful. Because children live in this world where they're somewhat dependent all the time. So the more that you can give them choices, the more your relationship with them is going to build. So just that's a side note on choices. So we've talked about the parent, setting these limits, observing, but naturally what is going to occur in these situations when you set clear limits, your child is going to flip out the first few times, okay? Maybe even the first dozen times. It's a process. So when they flip out, as a parent, what do? Because you have to be ready for that. I know I've had children flip out and I'm like, you don't know what to do. You've lost control. You don't know what as an adult. So what do we do when a child flips out? So that's the next thing. Acknowledge strong emotions. And I've got this thing here. It's okay to hate grandma. Is everybody immediately okay with that comment? It's okay to hate grandma? No? Yeah. See, so somebody's not going, no, you can't hate grandma. So I'll put some context here, but how many of you hate somebody? It's okay. No? Nobody? This is a lovely room. Lovely room. We all love everybody. Okay. So let's put it like this. How many of you can get angry at other people? Okay. Okay. How many of you would allow your child to get angry at somebody else? Okay, see, the hands don't immediately come up. So we all naturally get angry. Maybe some of us don't hate, we don't take it out, but we naturally get angry. But it's difficult for us to allow children to get as we get sometimes. So I'll go through this. So first example here, and this is a quote from Chaim Gnat, who I'll read from here. It takes great wisdom to realize that all feelings are legitimate. The positive, the negative, and the ambivalent. So I'm going to give you an example here. So this is a man, unfortunately he's dead now, he died early, but he was in the 70s, child psychologist. I'm going to read from his book. It's called, this is just an excerpt, Why Do Children Lie? Sometimes they lie because they are not allowed to tell the truth. 4-year-old Willie stormed into the living room angry and complained to his mother, "I hate grandma." His mother, horrified, answered, No, you don't. You love grandma. In this home, we don't hate. Besides, she gives you presents and takes you places. How can you even say such a horrible thing? But Willie insisted. No, I hate her. I hate her. I don't want to see her anymore. His mother, now really upset, decided to use a more drastic educational method. She spanked Willie. Willie, not wanting to be punished more, changed his tune. I really love grandma, Mommy, he said. Now, how did Mommy respond? She hugged and kissed Willie and praised him for being such a good boy. What did little Willie learn from this exchange? It's dangerous to tell the truth, to share your true feelings with your mother. When you're truthful, you get punished. When you lie, you get love. Truth hurts. Stay away from it. Mommy loves little liars. Mommy likes to hear only pleasant truths. Tell her only what she wants to hear, not how you really feel. Right? So again, Willie is not sitting there writing a journal entry at 4 years old, but this is the inner world going on inside of a child. So what could Willie's mother have answered if she wanted to teach Willie to tell the truth? She would have acknowledged his upset. Oh, you no longer love grandma? would you like to tell me what Grandma did that made you so angry? He may have answered, she brought a present for the baby, not for me. If we want to teach honesty, then we must be prepared to listen to bitter truths as well as pleasant truths. If children are to grow up honest, they must not be encouraged to lie about their feelings, be they positive, negative, or ambivalent, right? So I know, being in education for years and observing many, many classrooms, I cannot count the number of times I've heard in a classroom, we're all friends here, when a child gets very upset. Everyone is friends here. So I want to look around this classroom, this thing here. Are we all friends here? No, we might all have some general basic human respect for each other, but we don't even know each other. But so in a classroom full of kids, especially kids that are learning to deal with their emotions, to build relationships, or at home, a child is learning to deal with his feelings, he's not going to love everyone. Yeah, go for it.
Just as an example, I know of a child who wrote a note to her father. It said, "Dear Daddy, I hate you. Love."
Exactly. Yeah. And that's that sense of ambivalence. Like you don't, at times, as an adult, at times I'm like, what do I think about that person? Can you imagine what is going on inside of a child's mind? And particularly if grandma does something, and grandma could do something that could bother you, mom could do something that could bother you, dad could. And he's supposed to love them at all times. Push down your emotions, push them far down. It's very dangerous, right? So if mom changes her tune and actually mom treats that as an experience, wow, it sounds like you're really upset. Child learns, wow, I can share my feelings with my mom. And then if mom might say, sometimes I get upset like that too. Child learns, oh my gosh, other people feel like this? And then child can start to empathize, learn these things. So it's just so important to allow the emotion, even if it's something you don't want to hear. Even if it's something you don't want to hear. That's really important. Okay. After all of that, do you allow real anger, maybe even hate with your child? So it's hard. I know when I first started teaching, kids would get, I want to have a group conversation, make it all better. And I don't allow the child to actually feel the upset because I want to immediately get to, let's go back, let's all hold hands and be friendly again. Allow the emotion out. Allow the emotion out. I'm curious, what does it feel like as an adult to not have your feelings acknowledged? So think about a time you come home, you're really angry, and somebody doesn't acknowledge your emotions. Maybe instead wants to solve your problem. This happens a lot. Has anybody seen this example with the woman that has the nail in her forehead? Has anybody seen this? So there's this video, this woman has this nail in her forehead. Before you see it, there's she's like, oh my gosh, sometimes I just feel this pain, and it's like throbbing, and I don't know, and then the husband, then they pan in, and the husband's like, and she's got a nail in her forehead. And she's like, I just don't know what to do. And he's like, honey, you've got a nail in your forehead. It's not about the nail, So there's just this sense that he's not acknowledging her emotion. Now this is ridiculous. It's basically saying women are very emotional and men are the really rational ones, which is kind of nonsense in the end. But the concept of acknowledged emotion, somebody is feeling sad. Oh, it looks like you're really sad right now. Not like, what happened? Or I can solve that. But just acknowledge the emotion, mirror the emotion. Okay? She's not my friend anymore. Familiar?
Every day.
Every day, okay. Yeah, when I go into a school, every single time I observe in a class for more than 15 minutes, I hear this. Now, interestingly, and this is why I say teachers have the secrets to parenting. But oftentimes parents, they're just teachers. They've seen hundreds of kids do the same thing. But when you're at home and your child says, she's not my friend anymore. What? She was your friend last night? What are you talking about? Yeah, she's not coming to the party. So she's not my friend anymore. So what, now if we're acknowledging emotions, she's not my friend anymore. What might we do? Anybody want to take a stab? Putting you on the spot.
So what we do, which could be wrong, is say, oh, well, Susie's not your friend anymore? Oh, well, what about, and then we name 5 other kids in her class, and then say, well, why don't you become friends with 3 other kids that we didn't name? Well, why don't you play with Rhea? Why don't you play with this kid? Why don't you play with this kid? And
But we don't start there. We start with asking like why, the context around it.
Yeah.
And then, they normally don't have much context.
Listen, so she didn't want to play with me, so she's not my friend. Okay, why don't you play with this? And then of course I can only be friends with girls and not with boys.
Yeah. So let me just say that I still fall into the habit of doing the exact same thing that you do, and it was such a strange change for me to get out of it, and it still is, because it's so foreign to me. Because a child comes up to, she's not my friend anymore. My initial thing is to get into problem solving. Like, it just makes sense, right? Like, she's not your friend? Well, let's solve this. Do you want her to be your friend again? Maybe we should find somebody else. Acknowledge the emotion. Oh, it looks like you're angry at her or whatever. Some of the stuff will come out of its own. You don't need to pull it out. So it's just one thing. Matt, you want to go for it?
Yeah, just a quick thing. So this came up with a student I was talking to last year. So a 5th grade girl who had been having some problems with classmate. And it just kind of got to the point where she was like, yeah, we're no longer friends, so she tells me this. And so my first question was, how are you feeling about that? And she surprised me. She said, great.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, so it's like, we don't know what's going on in their heads. Let's get it out. Let's see how they're feeling. Yeah, and you never expect something like that. So get out the feeling. So this is what I have. Let's put this down here. So what do? And especially at a young age, you're going to have to help her to explain what it is. So you're feeling sad is one word. What are some other words for even more sad? Feeling, you could throw depressed, but in some senses you might name it. Yeah. But distraught. Yeah, you must be super upset right now. You could even say distraught, and in her head she's like, what the hell is distraught? But the point is, she's like, these kids are absorbing everything, right? So you're mirroring back her feelings. So here's something, now this would be in a school environment, but you're frustrated because Samantha won't play with you, because oftentimes they won't play. It sounds like you're really angry with her right now. That's not a lot of fun when you don't have someone to play with. You would be amazed at how much when you just name what they're feeling, just like they're just like, wow, you get me. So they can solve their own problems. And as you guys have seen as parents, tomorrow they'll be best friends. Sometimes you need a break. So it's just an example of just allowing the emotion out and acknowledging the emotion. Right? And it's not easy peasy. It's not going to be overnight. But this is the type of method that you want to use.
So there's no problem solving.
What's that?
Well, I'm just saying, in this instance, instead of saying, oh, you're not a lot of fun with someone you don't have anybody to play with, it's not then for us to say, well, why don't you go play with, this alternative friend?
Yeah.
That problem solving portion we just get rid of and just say, here.
I think you can, you know what you can do? The more you do the acknowledging the emotions, see what comes out of her and see what she says, because you might find that she starts creating solutions of her own. When you acknowledge emotions, it's amazing how creative these children can be. But let's say she doesn't. And this is that point again that you have to use your judgment, where you might have, you're really connecting with your child, and you might have an example like, oh, it looks like Jenny's free over there. Did you want to play with Jenny? Try it out. But what I'm saying is you want to stay away from solution orientation until you get to the point when you're having a respectful dialogue between 2 people that can come up with solutions. So what I would back away from is, I'm an adult, the one with solutions, and she's a child, and she doesn't know much. Don't have that relationship. She can feel it. She can sense it. So that's acknowledging strong emotions. And one thing I want to like guard against. I remember early on when I was a head of school, actually I wasn't even a head of school, I was just at the front office and I heard this and I didn't understand it completely. But a child was walking to her classroom in a toddler room. It was a boy, bawling, everybody get to school. Mom's dragging the little boy. It was like one of those dramatic experiences for me. And I love this because she says, be a big boy. And you know, this is big boys don't cry. And it was the classic line, I'll never forget it. I don't want to be a big boy. So it was just, I loved it. And it was just like, it was shocking to me. It's like, yeah, what? Because we just assume we're going to tell them, big boys wouldn't do that, big girls. It's like, what are we judging them for? Just acknowledge it sounds like you're really upset, but we need to go to class. You don't need to throw in your judgment about the child. Okay? Help the child to make his own judgment. Don't throw your own in there. So here in that opening quote, it really does take great wisdom to realize that all feelings are legitimate. The positive, the negative, and the ambivalent. If we wonder why there are so many lying people in the world today, often in politics, I think a lot of it we can trace back down to not being able to share one's feelings as a child. So it feels like, well, of course, everybody lies. And it just becomes a habit. So these things can lead down the road to worse things as you go on. Now again, I'm always kind of chill. My mom's actually here. She didn't know Montessori. She didn't know a lot of this. I made it out alive. You know, I'm not lying all over the place to people. But I think the better we can get at these things, the better our children will be. And what matters really, I love helping children, but my whole thing is I want to have fun working with children. I want parents to enjoy the experience and not feel like a prisoner. So it's about us enjoying the relationships. The better that we can work with children, the better we'll enjoy ourselves. So that's really the essence at the end.
Just gonna say something too?
Yeah, go for it.
Just about acknowledging emotions. You wanna do it like in a way that you, like in a, honest way. So like imagine yourself like really struggling and somebody can like, come on, buddy, get yourself, like it's not real, but you wanna feel like this child is truly frustrated or angry or sad or confused, and you really just want to imagine like you really want to just be really truthful and not just like phone like, come on buddy, let's get with it, because that's, that's not really, I mean maybe sometimes you might connect with the child, but the more truthful and honest it is, like the better, so like they really can feel it. Because if it's just like the wording, just like, oh, you just say the same thing, but you don't actually like, I can feel, like with Ruby, we feel it and we kind of almost want to like celebrate together, but if we just like, just ignore it or something, it's different. So just, that's one thing I've come to realize.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's the genuine quality. And I get this a lot because I'm a big fan of Haim Ginott. I don't think he has all the answers, but I think he's pretty good in most of his stuff. But I get this a lot when parents come up to me. Yeah, I've heard of Haim Ginott, he's great, but it doesn't really work. So I'll give you an example of using this technique of acknowledge strong emotions. Okay? So your child's yelling and so forth. Whoa, it sounds like you're really upset. I would be like, and then this is coming from a mom that 2 days before was like, stop your crying. So she, you can't use these things in a false way, and you also can't just automatically overnight turn into some kind of phony, I'm acknowledging your emotions, can't you see that? So you have to be genuine, and I think that's such a huge part of this, and it takes time, because I'll tell you, even for me, I love children, but sometimes I'll be around, it's like, are you really crying over that water spilled on the floor? Like, go get some more water. Like that's what I'm feeling. So I have to put myself in that child's context, like, wow, like that was a big struggle for him to get that water. So it's a huge thing. Then I go, wow, it can't be fun to drop your water like that. So it's real. It really is not fun when we drop water. So don't be phony about it. Don't be phony about it. So at the end here, what we have is the three things. So observe, am I needed here? That was kind of epitomized with Ruby. Offer freedom within clear limits. And then, again, acknowledge strong emotions. So these are the three main points for today. Again, there are so many other points in terms of parenting and working with children, whether in a classroom or at home, but these ones alone can help out. And as I said, each one of these could go on for hours getting into the details of them. If you're interested, people say, well, what should I go to? There are two people that I think are the strongest I've seen with children. It's Maria Montessori and Chaim Ganot. So I have an organization called Montessori Education. It's at montessorieducation.com, and there's some helpful stuff there as well. But these 3 points to me, if you can keep those in your mind and think them through independently on your own with your own child in front of you, they're incredibly helpful when you're working with children. Cool. All right, I think we're out. So thank you guys for coming. Yeah, that was good. Thank you. And you can hang out here for a little bit. We have this place. There's a lot of wine over there. So.